Prophecy, prophecy, prophecy. When God's servants speak forth, the wise listen. Deuteronomy 18:22. God is still saying something.
Emmanuel, God is still saying something. I'm Annette reporting for Emmanuel TV. On Sunday the 3rd of January 2010, Prophet TB Joshua gave a prophetic message that he saw a leader resign due to pressure mounted on him. Let's listen to the prophet's words.
I'm seeing a leader resign because of pressure mounted on him.
A few months later, on Sunday the 9th of May 2010, the man of God prophesied further, asking the congregation and viewers worldwide to pray for the Prime Minister of a country, saying, "Let the will of God be done." He said,
Pray for him, Prime Minister of a country. What is going to happen to this Prime Minister? I was praying that the Lord should put more light. Let the will of God be done.
Just 2 days after this prophecy was given, on Tuesday the 11th of May 2010, breaking news hit the screens worldwide that the British leader Gordon Brown resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, ending 13 years of Labour government in Great Britain.
Gordon Brown leaves Downing Street to tender his official resignation to the Queen at Buckingham Palace. He also said he would stand down as Labour leader with immediate effect.
This is CNN breaking news.
I've informed the Queen's private secretary that it's my intention to tender my resignation to the Queen.
At Labour HQ, Gordon Brown made clear he was resigning immediately as Labour leader.
My resignation as leader of the Labour Party will take effect immediately.
This is the end of an era. I mean, this is Gordon Brown resigning as Prime Minister, and this is the end, effectively, of what has been known as New Labour.
Gordon Brown had tendered his resignation a little earlier.
You thought it was all over? It is now. Gordon Brown didn't wait for his rivals to do a deal. He resigned tonight when it was clear that his audacious bid to stay in power and create what he called a progressive coalition had failed.
Prophet TB Joshua prophesied it, and it happened, just as he had said.
I'm seeing a leader resign because of pressure mounted on him. Pray for him, Prime Minister of a country.
Now let's watch the breaking news.
This is CNN breaking news.
Gordon Brown there resigning as Prime Minister, not expected to take too long over that. This is a formality. They don't hang around when they do things at the palace, and we will expect David Cameron at some point to present himself to the Queen and for the Queen to accept his position as Prime Minister. Let's have a listen to what Gordon Brown said just moments ago outside number 10.
As you know, the general election left no party able to command a majority in the House of Commons. I said I would do all that I could to ensure a strong, stable and principled government was formed, able to tackle Britain's economic and political challenges effectively. My constitutional duty is to make sure that a government can be formed following last Thursday's general election. I've informed the Queen's private secretary that it's my intention to tender my resignation to the Queen.
Let's watch another news report.
This is BBC World News with me, Michelle Fleury. Gordon Brown leaves Downing Street to tender his official resignation to the Queen at Buckingham Palace. He also said he would stand down as Labour leader with immediate effect.
Yes, I love the job, not for its prestige, its titles and its ceremony, which I do not love at all. No, I loved the job for its potential to make this country I love fairer, more tolerant, more green, more democratic, more prosperous and more just. Truly a greater Britain.
And now over to our team in Downing Street.
Very good evening from number 10 Downing Street, where David Cameron arrived this evening to take up residence as Britain's new Prime Minister. The Conservative leader had come from Buckingham Palace, where he'd been invited by the Queen to form a new government. Gordon Brown had tendered his resignation a little earlier. Mr Cameron, the 12th Prime Minister of the Queen's reign, takes office after 5 days of talks on forming a government with Nick Clegg and the Liberal Democrats. First tonight, our political editor Nick Robinson on the day's historic events.
You thought it was all over? It is now. Gordon Brown didn't wait for his rivals to do a deal. He resigned tonight when it was clear that his audacious bid to stay in power and create what he called a progressive coalition had failed.
As you know, the general election left no party able to command a majority in the House of Commons. I said I would do all that I could to ensure a strong, stable and principled government was formed, able to tackle Britain's economic and political challenges effectively. My constitutional duty is to make sure that a government can be formed following last Thursday's general election. I've informed the Queen's private secretary that it's my intention to tender my resignation to the Queen. In the event that the Queen accepts, I shall advise her to invite the Leader of the Opposition to seek to form a government. I wish the next Prime Minister well as he makes the important choices for the future. Only those who have held the office of Prime Minister can understand the full weight of its responsibilities and its great capacity for good. I have been privileged to learn much about the very best in human nature, and a fair amount too about its frailties, including my own. My resignation as leader of the Labour Party will take effect immediately, and in this hour I want to thank all my colleagues, ministers, members of Parliament, and I want to thank above all my staff, who have been friends as well as brilliant servants of the country. Above all, I want to thank Sarah for her unwavering support as well as her love, and for her own service to our country. I thank my sons, John and Fraser, for the love and joy they bring to our lives. And as I leave the second most important job I could ever hold, I cherish even more the first, as a husband and father. Thank you, and goodbye.
And with that, he and New Labour took their leave of Downing Street 13 years after they moved in. But not before the Browns, all of them, young John and Fraser too, faced the cameras together for the very first time, before travelling in Daddy's official car to go to see the Queen, to explain that it was time for someone else to have a turn at running the country. Following them out of the door, Alistair Campbell and other faces and names of the Brown years, Ed Balls, Ed Miliband, future leaders perhaps. At Labour HQ, Gordon Brown made clear he was resigning immediately as Labour leader. Harriet Harman will take his place until a successor is elected. And he took responsibility for an election failure.
And I have to accept and indeed assert personal responsibility. The fault is mine, and I will carry that alone.
Recall the words of Prophet T.B. Joshua.
Pray for a Prime Minister of a country. What is going to happen to this Prime Minister? I was praying that the Lord should put more light. Let the will of God be done.
On Monday, the 10th of May 2010, a day after the prophecy was given, breaking news hit international headlines that Gordon Brown publicly announced that he would resign as leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister of Great Britain. News reported that Gordon Brown was under pressure to bow to the inevitable and accept publicly that his days as both Prime Minister and Labour leader were numbered. Labour's Gordon Brown resigned as UK Prime Minister after 3 years in office. Mr Brown officially tendered his resignation to the Queen at Buckingham Palace, with Conservative leader David Cameron succeeding him. Queen Elizabeth II named Cameron Prime Minister Tuesday night, shortly after Brown resigned. Brown had said on Monday that he would step down as leader of his party by autumn, but he changed course Tuesday, announcing he was quitting his post immediately. Mr. Brown said he had taken the decision to resign after concluding that he would not be able to form a government after days of talks between the parties. In an emotional farewell speech outside Number 10, Mr. Brown said he had loved the job and it had been a privilege to serve. Brown's resignation followed Thursday's general election, in which no party won an overall majority, but the Conservatives won the most seats and votes. Both Labour and the Conservatives have since been trying to persuade the Liberal Democrats to join them in a coalition government to run the country. Mr. Brown had previously said he would resign as Labour leader, but stay on as Prime Minister until September, if Labour could agree a deal with the Liberal Democrats. But after this possibility ended, Mr. Brown decided he could not form a government and should stand down. Truly, pressure had mounted on the leader concerned, just as Prophet T.B. Joshua had said.
I'm seeing a leader resign because of pressure mounted on him. Pray for him, Prime Minister of a country. What is going to happen to this Prime Minister? I was praying that the Lord should put more light. Let the will of God be done.
Gordon Brown was under pressure from his most senior cabinet colleagues to step down voluntarily. The idea of Brown staying any longer is just impossible, said one ministerial aide. Labour MPs Graham Stringer, Kate Hoey and Malcolm Wicks on Sunday joined John Mann in calling for Mr. Brown to resign. Brown was also under pressure from the public to resign. Reports stated that if the Prime Minister were to refuse to relinquish his position, there would be public anger because of the poll defeat. The day after the prophecy was given, the Telegraph carried the headline, "Hung Parliament, Gordon Brown under pressure to stand down as Prime Minister," and stated that Gordon Brown was coming under increasing pressure from his own party to stand down as Prime Minister and act in a dignified way to ensure the party can regroup in opposition.
Pray for him, Prime Minister of a country. What is going to happen to this Prime Minister? I was praying that the Lord should put more light. Let the will of God be done.
The same day that Gordon Brown resigned as Prime Minister of Great Britain, David Cameron was appointed as the new British Prime Minister, as Britain said farewell to 13 years of Labour rule. They welcomed 43-year-old David Cameron as the new leader of the nation, the youngest in almost 200 years, who vowed to form a coalition with the Liberal Democrat Party, led by Nick Clegg. We at Emmanuel TV and the Synagogue Church of All Nations thank God for the smooth democratic transition and the peaceful formation of a new coalition government in Britain. We pray for the nation of the United Kingdom and its new government, that God would be their guide, and for the new leader, David Cameron, that God would grant him wisdom and largeness of heart to govern his nation in integrity, uprightness, and in the fear of the Lord. To witness the power of prophecy on the national and international level, join us every Sunday for our live service on Emmanuel TV at 9 a.m. West Africa time, 10 a.m. Central Africa time, 3 p.m. Indochina time, 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, 12 a.m. Pacific Time, and 3 a.m. USA Eastern Standard Time. This is Annette reporting for Emmanuel TV. And remember, God is still saying something.